The grand auction hall at SUT Herbies was buzzing with a low murmur of self-congratulation as the event wound down. Patrons admired their newly acquired treasures. But when the final lot was wheeled onto the stage under a single dramatic spotlight, a hush fell over the room. The grand finale was a pair of bracelets, breathtakingly, impossibly green, carved from a single piece of flawless imperial jade. One bracelet depicted a dragon, the other a phoenix, each rendered with such life and detail by a master artisan that they seemed to coil and stir in the light. This was the kind of piece you saw once in a lifetime, the kind of heirloom a Rockefeller or a Vanderbilt would build a dynasty around. The imperial dragon and phoenix bangles, the auctioneer announced, his voice resonant as he tapped his gavel. We'll open the bidding at $5 million, with increments of no less than $500,000. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had to have them. Chloe loved pieces like this. With history and a story, our 7th anniversary was just around the corner. She would be ecstatic. Besides, you don't just stumble upon jade of this quality. This was fate. I raised my paddle, my arms steady. 5 million. The words had barely left my lips when a voice from behind me sent a chill down my spine. Chloe, those belong to my parents. Can you please help me get them back? It was the one voice in the world I truly despised. Before I could even turn, a clear female voice next to him answered. Her battle went up. 5 million. I whipped my head around. Of course, it was Leo Finch. He was practically bowing, whispering conspiratorially to the woman beside him. My wife Chloe, they mean everything to me, he pleaded, his voice thick with fake emotion. I swear, I'll pay you back every cent. Don't worry, she said, her expression a mask of stoicism as she stared at the bracelets on stage. I'll get them for you, but you have to keep your promise. My hand tightened around my paddle, my knuckles turning white. I swiveled back to the front and shot my arm into the air. 8 million. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. People started whispering. This was no longer about the bracelet's value. It was a duel. We weren't even irrational territory now. Collectors came here for a steal, not to witness a blood-storped Leo. As face went pale, the woman beside him, my Chloe, didn't even blink. 10 million. Her move was decisive. Mine was more so. 15 million. Is he insane? The set is magnificent, but it's not worth that much. More money than sense, I guess. You could almost buy 2 sets for that price. Well, this is more entertaining than anything on Netflix. $15 million. The bid is 15 million. The auctioneer boomed, his voice electric. Do I hear any advance? 15 million, going once, going twice. I'll take the final bid. It was her voice, Chloe S. But it carried through the cavernous hall with the force of a thunderclap. The room went dead silent. Heads in the front rows turned to stare. A chatter in the back ceased. Everyone in this room knew the rule. Taking the final bid was a power play, a declaration of war. It meant you work, admitting to purchase the item at 1 increment above your opponent's highest offer. Whatever that might be, you were giving them a blank check and daring them to fill it out. Leo's tense expression melted into one of triumphant relief. He leaned in, whispering his thanks. Chloe managed a tight smile. Relax. I promised you I'd get it done. Hearing those words, the ice in my veins began to crystallize into something sharp and cruel. A slow, knowing smile spread across my face. You promised you'd get done. All right, let's see how you get this done. I raised my arm one last time, my paddle held high. 20 million. I let the number hang in the stunned silence for a beat, and tossed my paddle onto the empty seat beside me. A gesture of finality. This was my last offer then. As the whispers erupted into a full-blown roar, I stood up and walked out of the auction house without a backward glance. It was only then, as I was leaving, that she recognized me. The calm, determined expression on her face shattered, replaced by a ghastly, caper-white panic. "Halab, wait, let me explain." She scrambled to her feet, oblivious to the stares and the murmurs, ignoring Leo's hand trying to hold her back as she bolted after me. "Madame, your final bid. Madame, you can't just leave." The auctioneer's assistant called out ineffectually. "That's right. The woman in the back row is my wife, Chloe Sullivan." By the time she stumbled out onto the street, I was already in the back of my car as he kicked off her heels, running barefoot across the cold pavement, banging her fists against the tinted window. "Caleb, please, just listen to me." Leo said those bracelets were all he had left of his mother. "He was just tired. Stop the car. Wait for me." She was truly panicking now. She made me a promise, sworn to me that she was done helping Leo. I'd given her 2 chances. 3 strikes and you're out. I wasn't looking back this time. I met Chloe at a university job fair as the heir to Vance Holdings. I had no real reason to be there, but I was bored. And then I saw her as she stood out from the crowd of eager, cookie-cutter graduates in their ill-fitting suits. She was just in a white, button-down and a pair of old faded jeans, the simplest outfit imaginable, but she was radiant. An angel in a sea of mortals. My first thought was, that's my future wife. I didn't even glance at her resume. I just extended my hand. "Welcome to Vance Holdings." Her career trajectory was meteoric. She went from intern to the fiancée of the heir apparent in a single year. It wasn't easy. I pulled out all the stops to win her over. But even then it took a full year before she finally accepted my proposal after she became my wife. I gave her the world. She wanted to start her own business. I handed her the capital, the contacts, the distribution channels, all on a silver platter. The best talent at Vance Holdings was hers for the poaching. "Caleb, what if I fail?" she'd asked, her voice small. I wrapped my arms around her. "If you fail, I'll be your safety net. But with Vance Holdings backing you, failure isn't an option." She said she wasn't ready for kids. I took the heat from my parents, absorbing all the pressure and making my decision. I remember one family dinner. My mother brought up the topic again and Chloe just stared at her plate, silent. I wiped my brow with my napkin and looked my parents straight in the eye. "Mom, we'll have kids when we're ready. I'm focused on my career right now. When we have a plan, you'll be the first to know." And I took Chloe's hand and led her out. My parents shot each other a look in for the next 7 years. They never mentioned the subject again. Chloe loved to travel, so no matter how busy I was, I made time. We saw the Grand Canyon, hiked the Rockies, and drove the coast to California. I never once said no to anything she asked for. On our 7th anniversary, I booked out the entire top floor of a luxury hotel for a private celebration after dinner. As she stood looking out at the glittering skyline, she suddenly turned and threw her arms around me, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. A moment later, I felt something warm and wet on my neck. She pulled back, her eyes shimmering with tears. 7 years. Thank you for always being so good to me." She wrapped her arms around my neck again, her voice choked with emotion but full of a deep, resonant love. "I love you, Caleb Vance. I will only ever love you, honey. Let's have a baby." Hearing those words, I nearly broke down myself. I swept her up into my arms. "Yes," I said, my voice thick, "let's." I carried her into the presidential suite, thinking this was it, our happily ever after. And then her childhood friend, Leo Finch, came back. A few weeks later, Chloe took a call during dinner. When she hung up, she looked troubled. That was Leo. He's back in the States. Things aren't going well for him. I'd heard the name before. Leo was the guy who, right after college, had ditched everyone to follow some wealthy divo. RCE to Aspen now. 7 years later, the woman had gone bankrupt and kicked him to the curb, clawing back every gift she'd ever given him. He'd essentially wasted 7 years of his life as a boy toy for nothing. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. I watched the undisguised sympathy and worry play across Chloe's face. A knot tightening in my stomach. Oh, he's back visiting family? I kept my tone casual. He doesn't have any family to visit, she sighed. His parents were gone before he left, and he never mentioned anyone else. It's actually kind of sad when you think about it. He's all alone and now he and his girlfriend broke up. You mean the one who was 2 decades older than him, who had buried 2 husbands and had a son old enough to be his father? I asked, deadpan. She shot me a glare and playfully punched my arm. Don't you mean the guys hit rock bottom? We grew up on the same street, you know. I always thought of him as a little brother with him back. It's almost like having a little piece of home here. It sounded innocent enough, but I still felt the need to set a boundary. Honey, helping people is one thing, but you have to have a sense of proportion. That's not just about respecting others. It's about respecting yourself. You Ray, my wife. You have to be careful about appearances. No gray areas. I looked at her, my expression serious. Her face stiffened for a second before melting into a practiced, charming smile. I know you, Ray, the best, most understanding husband in the world. I get it. It's just helping out an old neighbor. Nothing more. At first, she was good about it. He got Leo an entry-level job at her company, a nothing position where they'd have minimal contact. They didn't seem to interact much outside of work when he called. Her tone was polite but distant, but soon the calls became more frequent. It started with practical questions about getting settled, but slowly devolved into him hawing about every trivial little thing. Chloe would patiently solve his problems over the phone or arrange for someone to go help him. One morning, he called, saying he was sick, really sick. He even asked her if he was dying. I saw the panic flare in Chloe's eyes. She spent a few minutes trying to calm him down, then turned to me. Honey, Leo has a really bad flu. I'm just going to run him over to urgent care. Before I could even respond, she was grabbing her keys and jogging out the door. The last time I'd seen her move that fast was when I had pneumonia, that evening when I got home. Chloe was in the kitchen cooking dinner, something she rarely did anymore as we had a chef. The only time we cooked for each other was after an argument, a silent offering of peace. It was clear she was apologizing for the morning. You're home, she called out, wiping her hands on an apron. Just relax for a bit, 2 more dishes to go. All your favorites. I leaned against the sofa, flipping through a copy of the Wall Street Journal, not looking up. So, is he gonna live? He's fine, she said, emerging from the kitchen. Just a bad cold from leaving the AC on all night. He spiked a fever and panicked. The doctor gave him some meds. No shots or anything. She disappeared back into the kitchen. So much for dying, I thought. Soon, a 4-course meal was on the table. They were indeed all my favorite dishes. She was a fantastic cook. As we ate, I was silent, focusing on my food. Chloe could feel the shift. Normally, I'd fill the silence with stories from my day. She tried to compensate, shattering away. My responses were clipped, monosyllables. Yeah, after dinner. They showered and went to the bedroom. A little while later, Chloe came in, fresh from her own shower. She left her silk robe fall to the floor and slid into bed beside me. The scent of her perfume filled the air. Her fingers traced lightly circles on my chest, her voice dropping to a husky, seductive whisper. Did you miss me? Let me make it up to you tonight. From that day on, it was as if Leo's immune system had completely collapsed. Every few days, he had some new minor ailment which he would describe over the phone in the most dramatic terms possible. And every time Chloe would fly into a panic and rush him to the hospital. Each time Chloe broke a promise or shattered a moment for Leo, she would try to patch the crack with a near-frenzied display of affection. Afterward, physical intimacy became her supergoal for our fracturing trust. At first, it worked, but after a while, her calculated passion felt like watered-down wine, growing weaker and more tasteless with each occurrence. The breaking point came on my birthday. I had cleared my entire schedule, canceling every meeting. I spent the afternoon in the kitchen, personally preparing a few of Chloe's favorite dishes. Everything was perfect. I was just waiting for her to come home. The lock turned late in the evening. Chloe rushed in, her face a mask of apology as she threw her arms around me. "I'm so sorry, honey. A last-minute meeting ran late." "Happy birthday." She presented a beautifully wrapped box containing a designer tie. I smiled, taking the gift. But just as I was about to speak, her phone rang. I had a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. Of course, it was Leo. The moment she saw the caller ID, her expression faltered. She glanced at me, her thumb hovering over the answer button. "Take it," I said, my voice fraught, betraying no emotions. He bit her lip and answered, "Hello, Leo." "What?" "What's wrong with Buddy?" "He's what?" "Throwing up." "Is it serious?" "Okay. Don't panic. Don't panic. I'm on my way." She hung up, her face etched with anxiety. "Caleb, I'm so sorry. Leo's dad. The what is said forever is really sick. It's the dot his mom gave him before she died. He even took him overseas. He's all alone here. He doesn't even know where the nearest emergency vet is. I have to go. I swear I'll handle it and be right back to celebrate with you, okay? Do what you want," I said, not giving her a direct answer. I was making her choose. She had already chosen. She snatched her coat from the hook and planted a hard, quick kiss on my cheek. "You're the best. I'll be back soon." And with that, she was gone, the door slamming shut behind her. I watched her hurry away, the warmth in my eyes slowly freezing over. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. "Jax, I need you to run a trace. Guy named Leo thinks your boss's wife is on her way to meet him. Find out which emergency vet they go to then. I want you to call Mr. Shao at the Gilded Cage and tell him." The voice on the other end was crisp and professional. "Understood, Mr. Vance." I hung up and walked to the dining table. I poured myself a tall glass of ice water and downed it in one go. "Leo Finch," I thought. "You just couldn't leave well enough alone. If that dog is so precious to you, then I'll make sure you remember it forever." Just as I expected, 10 o'clock came and went with no sign of Chloe. Then my phone buzzed with a call from Mr. Vance. "You were right. They took the dog home from a vet and then the two of them went to the Gilded Cage for dinner. Mr. Zhao had the dog prepared and served it to them. The guy fainted on the SBO. He is conscious now, just rolling on the floor crying." A grim smile touched my lips as I listened to JIX's report. I hung up. This was just a small warning today. It was his dog. Next time, it might be something else entirely. An hour later, Chloe burst through the door. She stormed right up to me, still in her oaten shoes, her face a thundercloud. "Caleb, was it you? Did you do this?" It was the first time since we were married that she had used my full name. "He's losing his mind. They served us Buddy in a stew." Leo collapsed right there at the table. "He's been in doubt of consciousness for an hour." "How could you be so cruel? That was a living creature." It was the only thing Leo had left of his mother. I knew the story of the dog. Leo's mother, dying of cancer, had gotten the puppy for him, so he wouldn't be alone after she was gone. For all these years, it had been his one constant companion, the only thing he had left. I interrupted her. Slowly rising from the sofa, my presence seemed to suck the air out of the room, and Chloe instinctively took a step back. "Cruel, Chloe? Let's be clear about who's being cruel here on my birthday. You ditched me for that piece of trash and his dog in your world. Is your husband's birthday less important than Leo Finch's dog? When have I ever been treated with such disrespect?" She was terrified. She had never seen this side of me. She kept backing away as I advanced on her, cornering her. That dog's life was so precious? Fine. Then I let it serve one final valuable purpose. It was Amy. Patience, Chloe. It's not infinite. My tolerance has a limit today. It was a dog. What about tomorrow? If I ever find out you've done something to betray me. I leaned in close, my voice a blade of ice. Then I'm done with you. And as for Leo, don't think for a second I won't destroy him. I always do what I say, Aldodo, you understand. No, Caleb, please don't, she stammered, pleading. It's not like that between us. I only see him as a brother, I swear. I'll cut him off completely. I promise. A brother? She scoffed. First he's a little brother, then he's a shoulder to cry on. And you know how that story ends. I turned away, no longer wanting to look at her pale, tear-streaked face. My voice returned to its usual calm. Tomorrow I don't want to see Leo Finch's name on your company's payroll. Handle it. With that, I walked into the bedroom and closed the door. After that night, Chloe seemed genuinely scared the very next day. Leo Finch was gone from her company. She moved around me with a delicate, cautious energy, her eyes filled with a kind of post-traumatic fear and a desperate need to please. He even brought up scheduling fertility appointments, trying to steer our lives back onto the track she had derailed. But trust, once shattered, is nearly impossible to piece back together. Chloe didn't understand that. Or perhaps she simply underestimated my methods and Leo's bottomless greed. A month later, Jax handed me a manila envelope. The contents showed that less than a week after being fired, Leo Finch had registered his shell corporation. Its primary business focus was conveniently in a downstream sector of Chloe's own company's supply chain. The seed money, a not insignificant sum, was traced back to one of Chloe's private prenuptial accounts stuck between the financial records were several photos. Chloe and Leo meeting in the corner of a quiet, out-of-the-way coffee shop. In one shot, Chloe was sliding a thick envelope across the table. The look on Leo's face was one of undisguised, avaricious glee. Miss Sullivan was careful, Jax reported, standing at attention beside my desk. She used cash withdrawn from an independent account she had before the marriage. The meeting spot was discreet. He paused. However, Mr. Finch has been less than discreet after getting the money. Was bragging to some new friends that his relationship with Miss Sullivan was special and... Have they? I left the question hanging in the air. What's that, sir? Jax asked, a flicker of confusion on his face. I shot him a look and understanding dawned. Oh, no sir, no. From everything we've gathered, their relationship appears to be strictly platonic. I gave a cold, humorless smile. Platonic, right? I see, I said. Closing the file, my voice was devoid of emotion. Regarding Chloe's company, what's our stake? Was actual controlling interest? On paper, Miss Sullivan is the majority shareholder and CEO. However, you provided the initial funding and all key industry contacts. Furthermore, Vance Holdings, through an offshore entity, holds a 35% non-dilutable preferred share. This gives you veto power over all major decisions and allows you, under specific conditions, to trigger a capital reclamation clause. JIX's report was, as always, flawless. Excellent. A smile touched my lips, but it held no warmth. Trigger the reclamation clause. Inform the finance department. They have 3 days. I want every liquid asset on that company's books, undistributed profits, project security deposits, everything transferred to my designated account as a special shareholder loan. Leave nothing. Yes, sir, Jax said without hesitation. One more thing, I added, tapping a finger on Leo's photo. He wants to start a company. He needs money. Let's help him. Start a rumor that the new Hudson Yards West redevelopment project is a sure thing. A city-backed venture with massive potential that's looking for private partners. Make sure some of our more promising-looking internal assessment documents find their way to him. Then have a few of our affiliated private lenders reach out. Tell him that once he secures a piece of that project, financing will be the least of his worries. A glimmer of understanding lit up JIX's eyes. I see. The project is real, but the zoning permits for the core plots will be tied up in red tape forever. The initial investment is a black hole, Mr. Vance. That is brilliant. I nodded, satisfied. Chloe, you want to help him behind my back, Using the resources I gave you? Fine. I'll let you see what happens when the money and connections you secretly provide get into Leo Finch's hands without my blessing. It will be the fire he uses to burn himself to the ground. The days that followed were unerringly quiet. Chloe was more cautious than ever, constantly watching my expressions, trying to read my mood. She never mentioned Leo, and, as far as I could tell, they didn't meet again, but I could sense her distraction. A subtle but persistent undercurrent of anxiety. She knew I had drained her company's cash reserves. She didn't dare ask why. Terrified I would discover where her own money had gone as a result, she could only give Leo a fraction of what he needed. Leo, on the other hand, was on fire. He'd have head first into the Hudson Yards trap. Fueled by Chloe's seed money and the massive loans from the very reputable lenders I'd sent his way, he leased a lavish office, hired a full staff, and launched his grand project with a flurry of activity. He even held a press conference, getting his picture in a few minor business journals, looking for all the world like the city's next big real estate mogul. Chloe probably thought she could keep it all hidden from me, betting that if Leo succeeded this one time, she would finally be free of him. Unfortunately for her, reality had other plans. Leo's company burned through cash at an astonishing rate. The crucial permits never materialized. His supposed partners and investors vanished after his last dollar was spent, and then the lenders came calling within a few short months. Leo's company was a hollowed-out shell, nothing but a pile of worthless contracts and crippling debt. That was personally on the hook for a sum that could bury 10 generations of his family. His frantic calls to Chloe started again, but now, with her own company in a precarious financial position, she couldn't bail him out, and Leo's situation was getting desperate. Chloe, you have to help me, he wailed over the phone one evening, his voice raw with terror. These guys are animals. They threw red paint all over my apartment door last night, smashed every window this morning. They told me they're gonna take one of my legs. I have nowhere else to turn. Please, Chloe, you're the only family I have left. I watched as Chloe's hand, the one holding the phone, began to tremble. Her face was ashen. She glanced at me nervously, but I just kept scrolling through my tablet, feigning indifference. Leo, I can't help you, she whispered, her voice strained. My company is having cash flow problems. I don't have that kind of money. You can't help me. Leo's voice sharpened, turning venomous. How can you be so heartless? You're the one who told me to start a company after you fired me. You promised me capital. The money never came through. That's why I had to take out the loans, and the project was this your husband's doing? It had to be him. He set me up. He's jealous. He wants to destroy me. Chloe, I'm telling you, if I can't pay them back, they're going to kill me. No, that's not true. Leo won't say things like that. I think Caleb, she hissed. Her voice cracking, she cupped her hand over the phone's microphone, shooting me another terrified look. I remained impassive, my eyes fixed on my screen. I don't care, Leo roared, completely unhinged. Chloe, for the sake of us growing up together, for the sake of my mother who loved you like a daughter, are you really just gonna let me die? The sound of crashing and splintering would come through the phone, followed by his theatrical, gut-wrenching screams. Just one last time, she murmured to herself after hanging up. She couldn't bear the thought of Leo being murdered. No matter what, they had known each other their entire lives. She had once even imagined they might end up together. That was before Leo, ambitious and unwilling to settle for a simple life, have latched onto a wealthy older woman and chased a fantasy overseas. Forcing a smile, Chloe tried to compose herself. Honey, something urgent came up at the office. I have to go take care of it. I might be late, so don't wait up for me, okay? Don't, just safe, I said, not looking up. My tone was flat, devoid of any warmth. She seemed to sense something was wrong. but she was in too much of a hurry to question it. Saving Leo was her priority. She could always smooth things over with me later. I watched her rush out the door, a profound and final stillness settling over me. The familiar ache of betrayal was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. A few days later, an invitation to a SUT Herbies auction arrived. With nothing better to do, I decided to attend. The atmosphere was lively, but nothing caught my eye until the very end. That's when they brought out the Imperial Dragon and Phoenix Jadeite bracelets, as the attendants carefully placed them on a velvet pedestal. A collective sigh of awe swept through the room. They were magnificent. The green so deep and pure it looked wet as the only piece that had managed to capture my interest all evening. I didn't hesitate to raise my paddle. Seeing that it was me, a few other potential bidders respectfully stood down, but just as the gavel was about to fall, the bid was challenged by the woman sitting directly behind me. My wife, Chloe, in her anxious state. She hadn't even realized I was the one she was bidding against. Leo had spun her a final desperate lie. The bracelets were a family heirloom, his mother's last possession. Lost years ago, she could just get them back for him. He would leave the country and never bother her again. It would be a clean break after a few rounds. Chloe, in a last-ditch effort, made her move. I'll take the final bid, a brazen, reckless play. People rarely invoke that rule. It was financial suicide, so I raised my paddle one last time and delivered the killing blow. 20 million. Then I dropped the paddle and walked away. The number left Sophia so stunned she dropped her own paddle to the floor. She had been gambling, praying the other bidder would back down so she could finally sever her ties with Julian Reed. Realizing that the man who had just financially ruined her was her own husband sent a new wave of terror. Through her, she ignored everyone and everything as she scrambled out of the hall after me. A default on a final bid is considered malicious bidding. The auctioneer announced coolly, "The deposit is forfeited. The bidder will be blacklisted from all future events." I just closed my corridor when Sophia appeared, slamming her hands against the window. Her face a mess of panic and tears. Behind her, standing on the curb, was Julian, his face pale and his eyes burning with resentment. He didn't move. He just stood there watching. Damien, listen to me. Sophia's voice was a raw, desperate sob. It's not what you think. Julian forced me. He said they were his mother's. He promised he would leave the country and never bother us again. I was just trying to help him one last time. End it for good. I swear you have to believe me. End it? My voice was so cold it made her flinch. You're gonna end it by invoking the final bid? By using my money to indulge that parasite? Did you forget, Sophia, that your company, your lifestyle, every dollar you spend has my name on it? I know I was wrong. Damien, please, give me one more chance. The last one. I swear, there's nothing between us. I love you, for the sake of our 7 years together. Please, 7 years. I lowered the window, looking at her air-streaked face without a flicker of emotion. It's too late. My voice was quiet, final. My lawyer will be at your office tomorrow morning at 10 with the divorce papers. Sign them. No, I won't sign. I'll die before I sign. She shrieked, her eyes wild. Damien, after 7 years? You can't do this to me, can I? I cut her off. You better think this through. Sophia, sign the papers and we can part ways with some dignity. If you don't, I have 1,000 ways to make you. You know I do. I gave you chances. I could have forgiven almost anything, but not this. Not betrayal. I nodded to the driver. The car lurched forward and Sophia stumbled, falling to the pavement. No, Damien. I never betrayed you. She screamed at the departing car. It had never occurred to her that the man who had once loved her so fiercely, who had treated her like a queen, could become so utterly ruthless as my car disappeared. Fear began to consume her. She remembered my warning after the incident with the dog, remembered the swift and brutal collapse of Julian's company. She knew without a doubt that I would do exactly what I said. Inside the quiet calm of the car, I turned to Marco, who was in the passenger seat. Julian Reed. And tired of looking at him, sent him away. Yes, Mr. Banswer too? Africa, I said. My eyes fixed on a blur of city lights outside the window, my voice was glacial. I hear in some of the more remote parts, they still have some interesting local customs. He seems to like grand, fiery gestures. Asked if him one. Understood. It will be handled cleanly. Marco had been with me the longest. I trusted him completely. It wasn't difficult. Julian was already broken desperate after the auction. Sophia refused to see him or take his calls just as he hit rock bottom. A friend appeared with a tip about a newly discovered gold mine in Africa. He didn't ask questions as arranged by Marco. The moment Julian stepped off the plane, he was knocked unconscious, thrown into a van and driven to a remote tribal village. When he woke, he was wrapped tightly in white linen, his mouth sewn shut. He's awake, let's begin, said the voice of the friend who had brought him there. To tall, lean tribesmen entered the hut and carried him outside, laying him in the center of a dusty clearing. A heavy-set man approached, chanting an incantation as he doused Julian's bound body with gasoline. Julian finally understood what was happening. He thrashed wildly. But it was useless. The man tossed a torch. The flames erupted with a roar, engulfing Julian completely. His silent screams went on for a full 5 minutes before the ceremony concluded. Back in New York, the divorce was finalized with surprising speed. Sophia signed the papers without a fight in a final act of mercy. Remembering the years we'd had, I didn't completely destroy her. I left her the company. We have been husband and wife after all. I didn't want her to be destitute. They say a woman can't stay young forever, but there will always be young women soon enough. Someone new entered my life. Her name was Elena. True to her name, she was gentle and graceful. A recent top-tier university graduate I hired at my company. She was brilliant. I lectured me to her was her quiet, composed confidence. She moved into my penthouse and, at my request, she quit her job. Unlike Sophia, she had no grand ambitions. She was content to be home, to manage our life. But Sophia didn't just disappear one snowy winter night. A frantic banging echoed through the penthouse. The housekeeper informed me that a woman was outside, demanding to see me. She was wearing only a thin coat. I went to the door. It was Sophia, standing in the blizzard, her face pale and her lips blue from the cold. Damien, please, she begged, her voice trembling. I've had time to think. It was all my fault. I should have listened to you. I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. I can't live without you. I frowned. Just then, Elena came up behind me. Picture of serene elegance, her skin glowing with the warmth of our home. The contrast between her and the disheveled, desperate woman in the snow was stark. It's over, Sophia, I said, my voice gentle but firm. Go home there. There's no point in this. Have some dignity. I put my arm around Elena, ready to turn back inside that. That's when Sophia's eyes locked on Eleanor. She froze, the tears on her face seeming to turn to ice. Her gaze drifted down, fixating on the way Eleanor's hand rested protectively on her own gently swelling abdomen. Every last trace of regret and pain vanished from Sophia's face, replaced by a hollow, vacant look. She looked at Eleanor, at the hand on her belly, then slowly, her eyes found mine again. There was no anger, no accusation, no hysteria. The last flicker of light in her eyes simply went out. Her body went slack, as if every bone had been removed, and she collapsed in a heap in the snow. After a few moments, she stirred with a great effort. She struggled to her feet. She didn't look at us again, head bowed against the wind. She simply stumbled away, disappearing into the swirling white of the blizzard. After that night, Sophia vanished. Her company was liquidated and a large sum of money was deposited into my account. The memo line contained only 2 words: payback. She deleted all her social media, changed her number, and severed every tie to her past life. 3 years later, On a weekend afternoon, my daughter was on the floor with her mother, building with blocks. Daddy, look. I finished my castle, she squealed, clapping her little hands for me to come see. I put down my phone and walked over, smiling. Wow. My little girl is so smart. When you grow up, are you gonna build a big house for Daddy? Yes. Galena brought over a plate of sliced fruit, a soft, loving smile on her face as she watched us. Lily, don't monopolize your father. Let him rest. She set the plate on the coffee table and sat down beside me, picking up a picture book. Come on, sweetie. Let Mommy read you a story. No, I want Daddy to build the castle, the little girl insisted, squirming into my lap. I laughed, picking her up and settling her on my knee. Okay. Daddy and Lily will build a castle together, the strongest castle in the world. A castle just for our family. Just then, my phone chimed. It was a message from Marco. I opened it. It was a short video clip, accompanied by a single line of text. The video showed a quiet stone monastery. A figure in a simple gray robe was sweeping fallen leaves from the steps with a long bamboo broom. Her head was bowed, her face partially obscured, but I could still see it was her. Below the video was a single clinical line of text. Abbey of Perpetual. Vermont. She is known as Sister Catherine. All is well. After she had disappeared that night, no one knew where she had gone. Worried she might have met with some misfortune, I had asked Marco to keep an eye out for her. Seeing that she was safe, I felt a sense of relief. I texted Marco back, telling him to arrange for regular anonymous donations of supplies to the Abbey. It was the last thing I could do for her.